Hi, I'm Josh Carving. Welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, we have two Death Battles to go over. I'll get into the reasoning why the second one, but first, Naruto versus Ichigo. Honestly, Death Battle tends to have this thing with me where if I go into a fight thinking I'm not going to enjoy it, they end up actually surprising me, and I quite like them. Like, with Hulk versus Doomsday, this happened where I kind of went in going, okay, it's going to be like a slugfest between two characters, not going to be particularly interesting, and I was wrong. It actually ended up probably being the best episode of that season. And then you have this one, Naruto versus Ichigo. I thought they were going to do significantly more lowballing on both characters, but they actually gave Naruto pretty much all of his stuff, and they gave Ichigo way more than they should have, but I see what they were going for. They were going for, if you assume the best of everything that he has, even though it makes no goddamn sense, you still get less than what base Naruto had. And that's a very fun way of going about it. However, it's kind of going to play hell with some of the Versus community, where some people are now going to believe that that is the level that Ichigo is actually at, even though he's not in any way, shape, or form that high. Also, I've been a little bit surprised as to how little salt there's been for this one. I know I've seen some salt, but I'm kind of surprised. Usually with a one this major, it would end up being a lot more, causing people to be pissed off. But the animation was pretty good, if a little bit short. I actually thought that a fight like this would probably have gone on a bit longer, but I think it was pretty good. And the custom sprites that they had, or I don't think they're technically sprites, the drawn pictures that they used, a lot of them were really good, especially when it came to the Kurama forms. Those were really cool. And then the final attack was just amazing. I think that's the most overkill we've ever had in a death battle, because that was literally the best attack that Naruto has against a base human. Lovely. Anyway, next, okay, so for Batman Beyond versus Spider-Man 2099, I've been working 6 days a week, and I didn't have enough time to look into it and film a prediction video and do all that stuff. So I figured instead of throwing out something like uninformed and just pointless, I would just wait until next time. And honestly, it's another Marvel versus DC match, so it's not like I really care enough that I would go out of my way to make sure I can. I honestly didn't have too many problems with it. I know a lot of the general consensus of a lot of the people who looked into the match say that it is wrong. But I don't have enough information on that to really make too much of a viewpoint. But the animation was alright. It was really short and didn't leave much of an impact. In that kind of vein, it's very similar to, say, something like Beast versus Goliath, where I think this fight is going to be entirely forgettable. When people are thinking back on this season, it's going to be one of the ones where people go, oh yeah, that happened. Coincidentally, Venom versus Bane, the second Batman versus Spider-Man fight. And people just forget that one happened. So I think this one's going to fall into a pretty similar situation as that one. And now the reason you're all here, Sephiroth versus Vergil, our season finale. Honestly, I'm a bit underwhelmed. I like Devil May Cry, and I really don't like Final Fantasy VII. But don't click off yet, though, because I'm pretty good at keeping my bias out of things. Both of these fighters I don't care too much about, and it's also a really, really big stomp of a fight, and I would really prefer to have something more to talk about for the finale. You'd want something good to talk about, like Superman, or wasn't Superman versus Goku? Yeah, it was. Superman versus Goku was the season finale. That had plenty to talk about. Charizard versus Greymon actually had quite a bit that was going on. It was a lot closer than Death Battle actually portrayed it as, but either way. And then, what was the season finale last time? It was like Urza versus Zoro. And that was an okay one. It was a bit, I think, a bit more one-sided onto Zoro's side, but either way, I prefer to have something to talk about. And this one barely has anything to talk about. In fact, the biggest thing to talk about is that there's so many people who think that there's something to talk about. A lot of people seem to think that Vergil's going to stomp, which is wrong. That's the thing, is that when you actually look into it for any length of time, it becomes really obvious that Sephiroth stomps. So, first things first, let's assume, I'm going to prove this wrong later, but let's assume they have perfectly even stats. Like, none of their stats are better than the other ones. Sephiroth would still completely crush him in every way, shape, and form. Let's go through the hacks that they have. So Vergil has Yamato, which has the spatial hacks. But the problem with this, and I think I went into this as well during the Dante versus Bayonetta, which was also wrong, but its hacks doesn't seem to actually be there. The only description that we have is that it can apparently cut through anything, but the way that it says it in that weapon description is they say it can cut through anything. And we've actually seen examples of it not cutting through things. It failed to cut through Dante's sword numerous times. It didn't cut through Dante's hand, only cutting partway into it. Lady's rocket launcher twice blocked it. The doors of Temen Nigru, which Arkham had to open. Clearly durability does play into Yamato being able to cut things. Next you have Regen, which can heal his wounds very quickly. And Devil May Cry loves to show this off with, bullets and stabbings and stuff, but what we've never actually seen is it regrowing limbs. Even Arkham with Sparda's power needed to reattach a limb to actually heal it, showing that it can't regrow limbs. If Sephiroth actually manages to destroy an arm, then Vergil will be left without that arm. And as shown in Advent Children, Sephiroth's regen is also capable of healing wounds slicing through you before the sword finishes passing through. And then he has teleportation as well, and that's pretty much the extent of his hacks. Then you, and I'm not going to go too much into weaponry because honestly it's kind of pointless in this one, because I think Vergil just has Yamato, Force Edge, the gauntlet, Cerberus, I believe, the gauntlets and greaves, and then the floating sword things that he shoots. And now we go to Sephiroth's hacks. With the break spell, he has petrification. Vergil has no counter for that. Pale Horse inflicts sadness, Mini, and Toad, which is transmutation. Vergil has no counter for that. Illusions, which in the manga, Vergil has resisted illusions, though it took some effort and he had to actually deal with the illusions. He had to consciously be like, okay, this is an illusion, and work his way through it, meaning the illusion still worked. He has Time Slow and Time Stop, which Vergil has very little counter to, other than simply with Time Slow. I'll get into that later. Silence, Sleep, and Paralysis. Sleep probably being the more major one there. No counter for that. Flight, which Vergil only has a counter for that in Devil Trigger. Telekinetic powers, including Cloud Creation and Splitting the Shinra Building. Yeah, no counter for that either, because that's simply telekinetic force, and as I'll get into later, more force than Vergil can deal with. Teleportation, which Vergil also has, so he even matches some of his own hacks, and materia summoning, which again I'll get into later. So even just from that, there is so much that Vergil can't deal with. Sephiroth stomps in a hacks fight in every way, shape, and form. But then some of you might be thinking, oh, but Vergil's really fast, or really strong, or really durable. He can outlast anything that Sephiroth has. Which is wrong. So first we'll go into Vergil's stats. Strength and durability, the only actual strength feats that Vergil has are mostly scaling to Devil May Cry 3 Dante. Mind you, only in Devil May Cry 3. Unless they go counting, Nello Angelo, which would not change all that much actually, because if I recall, Devil May Cry 2 is the strongest one, if I recall. Anyway, in Devil May Cry 3, Dante comes out to being around large town level. And so that would probably be the durability and strength that you apply to Vergil, because he doesn't really have too many feats, and none of them that would be higher than town level. For speed, he can react to Quicksilver, so that would be around Mach 2000 or so, which is a solid number, absolutely. And then we get to the stats that Sephiroth has. For strength and durability, he has feats of at least 9.6 gigatons of TNT for his storm creation, which is immediately enough to completely eradicate Vergil. His summoned huge materia also have feats out to 15.9 petatons each, or continent level. And in Dissidia, he can smack people into the sun, where the sun then explodes. He can also tank attacks from a lot of characters that can, say, cut the I forget what the cannon's name is called, but the cannon is basically able to, like, almost... I think it damages the meteor, but it doesn't destroy it. And that was where the huge materia feat came from. In terms of speed, we have... so, for those of us who are rational and we accept scaling, Bahamut Fury has a feat that was calculated to being at around 17 million C, where he went from one solar system to the next. Or let's just say you really don't buy that it was one solar system to the next in such a short amount of time. Let's even just assume that it was going planet to planet. In the amount of time that was actually given there, even just going from one planet to another... Hold on, let me just fix the... There we go. Even just assuming that it was one planet to the next, even if it was right next to each other, the closest that they could have been would have still come out to being faster than light. And in addition, you have, if you are one of those silly people who throws any scaling out because, hey, Zack beat Bahamut Fury, but Sephiroth doesn't scale to that for some reason, then Dissidia straight out declares that some of his attacks are at the speed of light. So you couldn't get more clear cut than this. Even assuming the stats were dead even, which they are very much not, Sephiroth has significantly more hacks, and almost all of it Vergil has no counter for. And all of this, mind you, without mentioning Supernova at all, only to show that even if they try to disregard it as an illusion or something, Sephiroth still stomps with no effort through stats alone and hacks. Vergil has actually no advantage in this fight. You might argue that he's... I can't even come up with anything. He's not more calm-headed. Sephiroth stays pretty calm. They're both equally as arrogant. No, he's probably not smarter. Sephiroth is probably smarter, more experienced. Yeah, I can't come up with anything that Vergil actually has as an advantage here. So I guess that really kind of puts it into perspective how one-sided of a fight this is. I honestly don't think that I should go on too much longer about it. I'm sure the animation will be pretty cool. But yeah, it's going to be Torian, so hopefully it'll be nice. Well, I'll see you guys after the next one when we find out what the season opener is for next time.